you gather here, perhaps without fully knowing why, but the unconscious knows there is a call, faint yet insistent, echoing from the depths of your being. It whispers to you that you are not like the others, that the fabric of this world, with its ceaseless noise, its shallow surfaces, its illusions of power and control, has never been your true home. You carry within yourself a different resonance, a subtle vibration that sets you apart, not in pride, but in estrangement. And it is precisely this estrangement that may be the very sign that you belong to a reality beyond the common measure. You may feel at times like an exile wandering through strange lands. The language others speak often seems hollow to you, as though it communicates only the outer shell of existence, but never the kernel, the living core. They speak of success, of progress, of things measurable and calculable, but you find yourself yearning for meaning, for what is immeasurable, for what cannot be captured by numbers or trophies. This yearning is not a weakness. It is a sign of a deeper soul structure, one that is oriented toward what I've called the self, the totality of your being, both conscious and unconscious, finite and infinite, mortal and divine. To feel that you are not meant for this world is to feel the pull of the self, calling you away from the narrowness of mere adaptation into the vast mystery of individuation. And yet, this feeling does not come without suffering. You know too well the loneliness of walking through crowds and feeling unseen, of listening to conversations that skim the surface while your own depths remain unspoken. The loneliness is not a punishment, it is a crucible. Loneliness is the great initiator, the threshold through which the soul must pass to awaken to its own reality. Those who are perfectly at home in this world rarely seek their deeper truth. It is the outsider, the stranger, the one who does not fit, who begins to ask the questions that tear open the veil of appearances in dreams. This estrangement often appears in images of wandering through ruins or deserts, being lost in vast cities, or traveling on a path where no one follows. These dream images are not cruel tricks. They are symbolic expressions of your psychic condition. They reveal that the conscious world cannot contain you. And so the unconscious sends images of exile, so that you may recognize in your inner mirror what you already feel in your outer life. Do not dismiss such dreams. They are maps, they are signals that guide you toward the place where your soul belongs, not in the conformity of the collective, but in the sacred dialogue with your own depths. Many who are not meant for this world encounter the shadow in its rawest form, because you do not fit into the social fabric. You cannot avoid seeing its false threads. You notice the hypocrisies, the masks, the lies that pass for truth. And because you notice them, you are forced to confront them within yourself as well. The shadow is not merely the darkness of others. It is your own repressed material, your fears, your desire, your anger, your unlived life. To feel alien in this world is to feel its shadow pressing upon you, demanding integration. This can be terrifying. To walk among those who are asleep and yet remain awake is not easy. You may even wish at times to surrender your awareness, to numb yourself, to rejoin the sleep of the masses But the soul that has tasted awakening cannot return to ignorance without tearing itself apart. There is also within you a secret nostalgia, a longing for something you cannot name. You may project it onto an imagined homeland, or a forgotten childhood, or even another world entirely. But what you long for is not a place on earth. It is the wholeness of your own being. You feel this because your psyche has glimpsed the archetype of paradise, the eternal realm from which consciousness descends. That longing is the echo of the original unity before you were divided into fragments, before persona and shadow. Ego and unconscious, masculine and feminine, split apart. The outsider feels this longing more acutely than others because you stand at the edge of the collective, looking beyond the walls that others accept as the horizon. The walls do not fool you. You know there is something more, and that knowing burns within you like a wound that will not heal. And so you search, you read sacred texts, not as dogma, but as symbolic language for the inner journey. You are drawn to myths, not as children's tales, but as timeless expressions of the archetypes moving through every human soul. You feel kinship with ancient figures, Hermes the traveler, Orpheus the singer in the underworld, Prometheus the bringer of fire. Why? Because these are your companions in exile. They too lived between worlds, carrying messages from the beyond into the human realm. To feel that you are not meant for this world is to share their fate, to join their eternal procession through the symbolic imagination of humanity. But let us not romanticize too quickly. To be alienated from the world is also to be vulnerable to despair. Many who feel they do not belong fall prey to nihilism, to the belief that nothing has meaning, that the world is only chaos. This is the danger of estrangement. If you stop at alienation, you may drown in it. But if you continue, if you face the despair without collapsing, then something miraculous can occur. You begin to realize that the world which rejects you is not the only world. There is another dimension, an imaginal reality, which does not depend on collective approval. When you stand in that place, you are no longer merely in exile. You become a bridge. You carry within you the unseen, and you offer it to those who are still trapped in appearances. The unconscious often dramatizes this transformation through the archetype of death and rebirth, dreams of burial, of drowning, of descending into caves, are followed by dreams of light, of resurrection, of rising towards the sky. These are not simply personal fantasies. They are universal patterns of psychic renewal. They show that alienation, when endured, becomes initiation. The feeling of not being meant for this world is the first step into the underworld. But if you walk the full path, it leads to a new birth, not into the old world, but into the eternal reality of the soul. To live this path requires courage, for the collective will try to pull you back. It will call you strange, mad, too sensitive, unrealistic. But understand this: sensitivity is not weakness. Sensitivity is the antenna of the soul, tuned to frequencies that the ordinary world cannot perceive. The exile perceives what others deny. That perception is painful, but it is also your gift. You see the cracks in the facade, and through those cracks you glimpse the light that others miss. Do not despise this vision. It is your vocation. Now, as I speak, I can feel the stirrings in you. Some of you have been carrying this burden silently, afraid to speak it aloud, afraid of being dismissed. Let me say to you, you are not alone. Across all times and cultures, there have been those who felt too large for the world, too deep for its surfaces. They have been called mystics, Buddhas, seers, prophets, lunatics, dreamers. They are your kin. And you too belong to this lineage. To feel you are not meant for this world is not a curse, it is a sign that your soul is destined to participate in a greater mystery. But the path is not simple. It requires integration. If you try only to escape this world, you will never find peace. If you cling to the fantasy of a world elsewhere without engaging the one before you, you will remain divided. The task is paradoxical. You must live fully in this world, even while knowing you are not of it. You must participate, but not be consumed. You must engage, but not identify. You must find the eternal in the temporal, the sacred in the profane. This is the true challenge of the exile, not to abandon the world, but to redeem it through your being. Think of Christ in the Gospels, speaking of being in the world, but not of the world. This is not merely a religious formula. It is a psychological truth. To be not of this world means that your essence is rooted in the self, not in the persona, not in the ego. It means that while you walk in the market and the streets, you are attuned to the inner kingdom that transcends appearances. The exile, when matured, becomes the sage, the healer, the visionary, not because you reject the world, but because you see through it into its archetypal core. You may ask, how do I know if this path is truly mine? Listen to your dreams. Watch for the images that repeat, the symbols that haunt you. Notice the synchronicities, the uncanny coincidences that seem to whisper a hidden pattern. Pay attention to the moments when your soul feels inflamed, when ordinary life suddenly cracks open to reveal something numinous. These are the signs. They are the language of the unconscious, guiding you toward your destiny. Do not expect them to be comfortable. They will unsettle you, even frighten you. But behind the fear is truth. In this first movement of our reflection, I want you to see that feeling out of place is not a pathology, but a summons. You are summoned to a deeper reality, one that the ordinary world cannot comprehend. The summons will not go away, no matter how much you try to silence it. You can drown it temporarily in distractions, in conformity, in addictions, but it will return, knocking at the door of your soul. And when you finally open that door, you will see that your alienation was never meaningless. It was a beginning of your individuation. The first sign that you are called to a destiny beyond the narrow confines of collective life. When we speak of not being meant for this world, we touch something archetypal, something far older than your individual story. Across the ages, myth has carried this truth. The child who does not belong is always present in myth, the one abandoned at birth, left upon the river, cast into exile, raised by strangers. Think of Moses placed in the basket, Sargon of Akkad floating on the waters, even Romulus and Remus, suckled by the she-wolf. What do these images reveal? They show that the soul that does not fit is destined for a journey of magnitude. The exile archetype is a sign not of defect, but of calling. The unconscious carries this myth within you, and it manifests as your strange sense that this world is not your home. This feeling often begins in childhood. You may have noticed even then that you were not like the others. Where they delighted in games of imitation, you felt restless. Where they found joy in the ordinary, you felt an inexplicable melancholy. You carried questions no one could answer. Why am I here? Why does death exist? What is the meaning behind these faces? These days, these nights, adults may have brushed your questions aside, but the psyche does not brush them aside. They sink into the unconscious and return later with greater force as dreams, visions, or sudden awakenings that shatter your sense of ordinary reality. Perhaps you have had such moments. Walking in the street, you suddenly feel that everything is unreal, like a stage set built around you, or perhaps in a quiet moment you sense a vastness behind appearances, as though reality itself is only a thin veil draped over an abyss of eternity. These moments can be frightening, even destabilizing, but they are also revelations. They are intrusions of the numinous. They remind you that the soul was not crafted only for survival, for labor, for the endless repetitions of daily life. The soul was born into mystery, and when you feel not meant for this world, it is because you are glimpsing that mystery more clearly than others. Now, let us look more closely at the symbolic dimension. To feel estranged from the world is to stand in tension between two realms, the profane and the sacred, the conscious and the unconscious, the finite and the infinite. You are a bridge, and a bridge is never at rest. It is stretched between opposites. You feel the pull of the material world with its demands, but you also feel the gravitational pull of the inner world with its strange images and symbols. This tension can be unbearable. You may feel torn apart, yet it is precisely in this tension that transformation is born. Without tension, there is only stagnation. With tension, the psyche grows, expands, individuates. In dreams, this tension often appears as a conflict between two houses, two lands, two identities. You may dream of standing at a crossroads, unsure which path to take. Or you may dream of leaving one home and searching for another that does not yet exist. Such dreams reveal the archetypal exile. They remind you that your psyche is not static. It is dynamic, unfolding, seeking wholeness. To feel not meant for this world is to be caught in the dynamic between what is and what is possible, between your present identity and your deeper self. The collective, however, resists this movement. It demands conformity. It rewards those who adapt without question, and it punishes those who resist. Thus, to feel alien is to feel the weight of the collective shadow pressing against you. The collective will project its shadow onto the outsider. You may be called eccentric, unstable, even dangerous. This is the fate of those who do not belong. But the projections of the collective are also a gift. They force you to confront your own shadow. Every insult, every rejection, every misunderstanding, if you hold it consciously, becomes an opportunity to see what lies hidden in yourself. The outsider cannot afford illusions. You must face your shadow with courage, or it will devour you. And what of love, you may ask? The one who feels not meant for this world often struggles to find love. You may feel unseen by partners who desire only your persona, not your soul. Or you may be drawn again and again to those who wound you, who reflect your shadow more than your essence. This too is part of the exile's path. Love, in its deepest sense, is the encounter of two souls, not two masks. And because you cannot be satisfied with surface love, you suffer, but through the suffering, you learn to distinguish illusion from reality, possession from communion, projection from recognition. In time, if you endure, you may discover a love that reflects your true self, not your false adaptation. But such love comes only when you have embraced your solitude, when you no longer fear being alone. This brings us to solitude itself. Those who are not meant for this world are called again and again into solitude. You may resist it, you may long for company, but the call returns. Solitude is not loneliness, it is communion with the depths. In solitude, the unconscious can speak. In solitude, the archetypes can reveal themselves, the prophets, the mystics, the visionaries, all passed through solitude. Christ in the desert, Buddha under the tree. The shamans in their caves all lived. The truth that exile is the womb of revelation. So when solitude comes to you, do not run, enter it, sit in its silence, listen to what arises. You will find that what seemed like emptiness is full of voices, full of symbols, full of messages from the self. But solitude also brings confrontation with death. To feel not meant for this world is to feel the constant shadow of death. You may find yourself thinking often of mortality, of the futility of earthly pursuits, of the brevity of existence. Do not interpret this as morbid. Death is the great teacher. To live with death near you is to live authentically. It strips away trivialities. It reminds you that every moment is precious, that every act is sacred. Many fear death and flee from it. But the exile learns to walk with death as a companion, for you know that this life is not the end. That consciousness stretches beyond the boundaries of flesh, that death itself is a passage into mystery. To live as if you were not meant for this world is to live already half beyond death, to walk with one foot in eternity. And so you begin to perceive synchronicities. You notice that the world, while it feels alien, also speaks to you in hidden languages. A bird crosses your path at the moment of despair. A phrase overheard in a crowd answers a question you held silently. A book falls open to the exact page you needed. These are not accidents. They are communications from the self, from the deeper order of reality. The exile is sensitive to these patterns because you are not fully entangled in the collective illusion. You notice what others dismiss, and in these synchronicities, you begin to realize perhaps you are not meant for this world, but this world is still meant for you. It serves as a stage upon which your soul enacts its mystery, its strangeness, its rejection, its cruelty. These are also its gifts, pushing you toward greater depth. As you move further on this path, you begin to sense that your alienation is not only personal but also archetypal. You embody the archetype of the stranger, the wanderer, the pilgrim. This archetype appears in every culture because it is universal. Humanity needs its strangers. Without them, the collective would stagnate in conformity. The stranger is the one who brings new vision, new wisdom, new ways of being. You may resist this role, you may long to blend in, but the archetype will not release you. You are destined to carry the wisdom of the outsider. Your very estrangement becomes your authority, for you are not blinded by the illusions that bind the crowd. And here lies the final paradox. Though you feel not meant for this world, it is precisely in this world that your destiny unfolds. The self does not call you to escape, but to transform. You are called to embody eternity within time, to reveal the sacred within the mundane, to live as a citizen of two worlds simultaneously. This is the task of individuation, to unite opposites, to hold tension, to embody wholeness. The exile becomes the healer, not because you fix others, but because your very being reveals another way of living. By accepting your strangeness, by embracing your solitude, by confronting your shadow, you become a living symbol of transformation. And this world, though it may never feel like home, becomes the ground upon which your soul's mystery is enacted. So when you feel that you are not meant for this world, do not despair. Take it as a sign. It means you are awake. It means you have begun the journey towards the self. It means you carry within you a light that the world does not recognize but desperately needs. Carry it with humility, with courage, with patience. You will still feel lonely, you will still suffer, but you will also discover depths of meaning, moments of revelation, flashes of eternity, and in the end, you will see that the world, which once rejected you, has been secretly guiding you all along, pushing you toward your true home, which is not a place, but the wholeness of your own being. There is a moment in the exile's path when you realize that what you thought was a defect is in fact an initiation. The feeling of not belonging is not random, nor is it cruel fate. It is the summons of your soul to a higher order of being. But this realization is never immediate. It comes after long years of struggling, of questioning, of carrying the weight of isolation. At first, you may rage against the world, asking why it has no place for you. You may resent its pettiness, its blindness, its refusal to see what is so evident to your heart. Yet slowly, through the crucible of suffering, you begin to see that your estrangement is the very fire in which your deeper nature is being forged. The self does not call gently, it disrupts, it wounds, it destabilizes the comfort of adaptation. The ego would prefer to belong, to find ease in the marketplace, to rest among familiar roles, but the self does not permit this. It shakes you loose, tears you from the herd, strips away your illusion, until you are left raw, naked, unmoored. This stripping feels like death, and indeed, it is a kind of death. The death of the adapted persona, the mask you wore to fit into a world that never truly recognized you. To be not meant for this world is to undergo this death again and again, until finally you stand not as a persona, but as a soul unveiled. Dreams often reveal this stage with images of disintegration, your body falling apart, your clothes being torn, your home collapsing, your city in ruins. These are not nightmares in the superficial sense. They are profound symbolic messages. They are the unconscious declaring that the old structures cannot contain you, that your old adaptations are crumbling. Out of these ruins, something new will arise, but to endure this, you must resist the temptation to cling. You must allow yourself to dissolve, to be undone, to enter the mystery of transformation. It is in this dissolution that you may encounter archetypes with terrifying power. The trickster may appear, mocking your attempts to cling to certainty. The Great Mother may arise, both nurturing and devouring, reminding you that you are a child of something far larger than yourself. The wise old man or woman may emerge, guiding you with cryptic words that point beyond reason. These archetypes are not fantasies. They are living realities within the collective unconscious. They are older than humanity, older than time. To feel not meant for this world is to become vulnerable to them, to open yourself to their force. This can be overwhelming, even dangerous, if you resist. But if you surrender, if you engage them with reverence, they can lead you into a wisdom that transcends the limitations of ordinary life. Many of you have felt this in dreams, visions, or even in waking synchronicities. You sense presences that cannot be explained rationally. You encounter patterns that reveal a hidden order. These are not coincidences. They are eruptions of the archetypal field into your personal reality. The exile is more susceptible to them because your boundaries with the collective unconscious are thinner. The world does not fully claim you, and so the deeper world breaks through. This is why your life may feel so strange, so filled with uncanny events, so marked by signs. The unconscious is speaking to you directly because you are not lost in the noise of collective adaptation. You stand closer to the threshold, and the threshold is alive. This threshold is also the place of danger. Those who are not meant for this world often fall into extremes. Some seek refuge in inflation, believing themselves chosen, superior, destined for greatness. This is a trap. Inflation is the ego's counterfeit of individuation. It seizes upon the truth of your estrangement, but twists it into pride, into arrogance, into grandiosity. Others fall into the opposite extreme, despair. They believe their alienation is meaningless, that they are cursed, that nothing will ever bring them peace. This too is a trap. Despair blinds you to the larger pattern unfolding through your suffering. Both inflation and despair are distortions. The true path lies in neither. It lies in humility before the mystery, in surrender to the self, in the slow, often painful integration of opposites within you. To walk this path requires discernment. You must learn to distinguish between the voice of the ego and the voice of the self. The ego seeks comfort, recognition, approval. The self seeks wholeness, which often requires discomfort, rejection, and sacrifice. The ego fears the shadow. but the self embraces it. The ego clings to certainty, but the self moves in paradox. The ego demands answers, but the self offers symbols. To feel not meant for this world is to live constantly between these two voices. At times, you may not know which you are hearing. You must cultivate patience, attentiveness, and the willingness to live with ambiguity. The self rarely shouts. It whispers, it reveals itself slowly through dreams, through synchronicities, through sudden moments of illumination. If you listen too quickly, you may mistake the ego's fantasy for the self's truth. So wait, test, reflect, let the symbols ripen within you. There is, I must tell you, a profound loneliness in this to others. Your life may seem strange, your concerns incomprehensible. They may wonder why you cannot be satisfied with what satisfies them. They may grow impatient with your questions. Your melancholy, your refusal to conform, this is inevitable. You are living a different story. But remember, your loneliness is also your teacher. It strips away illusions of belonging, so that you may belong to the self. It forces you inward, into the depths where your true home lies. In solitude, you will meet what no crowd can offer. You will encounter the eternal. This encounter with the eternal often comes suddenly, unexpectedly. It may arrive in a dream of overwhelming light, or in a moment of silence where the world seems to dissolve and only presence remains. In such moments, you know beyond doubt that you are not meant for this world, not because you reject it, but because you have touched something greater. You have glimpsed the archetype of the self, the totality of your being, the union of opposites, the eternal center. Such experiences cannot be explained, only lived. They may fade quickly, leaving you with longing, but they change you irrevocably. Once you have tasted eternity, the illusions of the world can never fully satisfy you again. And so the path becomes one of integration. You cannot remain dissolved in the eternal, for you still live in time. You cannot abandon the world, for the self calls you to embody wholeness here and now. This is the paradox of the exile. You must live fully in a world that is not your home. You must act, work, love, suffer, and create, knowing all the while that your true belonging is elsewhere. This tension is unbearable to the ego, but it is the very essence of individuation. The task is not to escape, but to incarnate, to bring the light of the eternal into the darkness of the temporal, to embody the self within the limits of human life. This is the meaning of your estrangement. This is the destiny hidden within your suffering. I ask you to consider, what if your feeling of not belonging is not a defect, but a vocation? What if you were placed here precisely because you do not fit, so that you might reveal what fitting in would conceal? What if your alienation is the seed of transformation, not only for yourself, but for the collective? For the collective desperately needs its outsiders. It needs those who see differently, who question, who refuse to accept illusions. Without them, it would drown in its own conformity. You may not feel meant for this world, but this world needs you nonetheless, not to become like it, but to remain true to your difference. Your very existence is a symbol, a living reminder that there is more than what the crowd believes. And so, let me say to you, Do not despise your difference. Do not curse your alienation. Do not flee from your loneliness. Embrace them. They are the very signs of your path. They are the wounds through which the self enters. They are the cracks in the world through which the light shines. You may never feel at home in this world, but you can become at home in yourself. And when you are at home in yourself, the world, though strange, becomes bearable, for then you carry your home within you, and no exile can take it away. There is a sacred paradox I must emphasize as we come to the heart of this reflection. The more deeply you realize you are not meant for this world, the more profoundly you are able to serve it. For you are not called to escape, but to embody. You are not called to flee into fantasy, but to incarnate the eternal into the temporal. Your estrangement is not meant to leave you hovering in abstraction. It is meant to root you in reality with greater depth, greater awareness, greater compassion. The world may never feel like your home, but you are asked to dwell in it with a consciousness that reveals its hidden dimensions. This is the true mystery of individuation. You are both in exile and in return, both a stranger and a bearer of meaning. Imagine for a moment the archetype of the wanderer. In myth, the wanderer leaves home, travels through strange lands, encounters dangers, suffers wounds, receives visions, and then, finally, returns not the same as when they left, but transformed, carrying treasures for their people. This is your story. You may never feel entirely at home in the village of ordinary life, but through your wandering, you gather insights, images, truths that can feed the collective. You may not be meant for this world in the sense of adaptation, but you are meant for it in the sense of transformation. Your gift is not to conform, but to reveal. And what are these treasures you carry? They are not material, they are symbolic. They are dreams interpreted, shadows integrated, archetypes encountered, paradoxes embraced. They are the capacity to live with ambiguity, to endure suffering without despair, to see through illusions without cynicism. They are compassion, born not of sentimentality but of depth, because you know what it means to be unseen, to be misunderstood, to be cast aside. You carry within you the treasure of knowing that reality is more than appearances, that the psyche is vast, that the soul is eternal. And when you live from this awareness, even without words, you become a living symbol that others can recognize. There will still be pain. Do not imagine that the exile's path ends in comfort. Comfort belongs to adaptation, meaning belongs to individuation, and meaning often requires pain. But this pain is no longer meaningless. It becomes sacrifice. You sacrifice ease so that depth may emerge. You sacrifice belonging so that truth may be spoken. You sacrifice illusion so that wholeness may unfold. And in this sacrifice, you touch the archetype of the hero, not the hero who conquers others, but the hero who surrenders to the self, who bears the cross of alienation for the sake of consciousness. This is the heroism required of those who are not meant for this world, not conquest, but transformation. In this transformation, death is always near, not merely physical death, but psychic death, the continual dissolution of identities, roles, and masks again and again You will be asked to let go of what you thought defined you. Again and again. You will be stripped of illusions. Again and again. You will die into greater wholeness. This is frightening. Yes, but it is also liberating. For every death clears space for the self to emerge. Every dissolution reveals a deeper center. Every ending opens into a beginning. To be not meant for this world is to live in constant initiation, constant rebirth, constant unveiling. And what of the final death, the passage that awaits us all? For you who feel estranged from this world, death is not merely an end, but a homecoming. You have walked all your life with one foot in eternity. You have felt the call of something beyond. Death then is not foreign. It is familiar. It is the threshold you have been approaching all along. When the time comes, you will step through it, not as a stranger, but as one returning home. The world may never have felt like your place, but death will reveal that you always belong to something greater. Your exile ends in reunion, your estrangement in integration, your suffering in fulfillment. And yet, until that moment, your task remains here. Do not withdraw into bitterness, nor lose yourself in illusions of superiority. Do not despise the world for its blindness. Instead, walk among the blind with eyes open. Speak when you must. Remain silent when you must, but always carry within you the awareness that you are more than this world can hold. This awareness does not make you better. It makes you responsible. You are responsible for the light you carry. You are responsible for the depth you embody. You are responsible for showing that even in exile, meaning is possible. Even in suffering, wholeness can emerge. Some of you may wonder, how can I endure this path? The answer lies not in escaping the burden, but in learning to live it symbolically. Ritual, dream work, reflection, creative expression. These are the ways the exile survives. They anchor you in the deeper reality. They remind you that your alienation is sacred. They allow the unconscious to speak. Art, poetry, myth, meditation, these are not luxuries. They are necessities for the soul that does not belong. They give form to the formless, voice to the silent, image to the ineffable. They allow you to carry the unbearable in symbolic form so that it becomes not only bearable, but transformative. Consider this. Every time you give expression to your inner truth through words, through art, through acts of kindness, through silence held with dignity, you are enacting the mystery of the exile. You are embodying the paradox of being in the world, but not of it. You are revealing that wholeness is possible even in estrangement, and others, though they may not understand, will feel it. Something in them will recognize the symbol you have become, and perhaps through you, they too will begin to awaken, for in the end, the exile is not alone. Across cultures, across ages, across continents, there are others like you, mystics, Buddhists, dreamers, seekers, prophets, all carrying the same wound, the same longing, the same summons. You belong to them. They are your kin, your true family, your hidden lineage, You may never meet them in person, but you will know them when you read their words, when you dream their images, when you feel their presence across time. They, too, were not meant for this world, and yet, through their exile, they gave birth to meaning. Through their suffering, they revealed eternity. Through their alienation, they transformed the collective. You walk in their footsteps. You continue their work. So when you next feel that unbearable sense of not belonging, when the world feels hostile, shallow, empty, remember this. You are exactly where you are meant to be. Your alienation is not an accident. It is a sign of your vocation. It is the wound through which the self is calling you. It is the threshold into individuation. Do not flee it. Do not despise it. Do not numb it. Enter it. Embrace it. Live it. And through it, allow yourself to be transformed into a symbol of wholeness, a bearer of light, a wanderer who reveals the eternal even in the transient, in the silence of your own soul. You already know this truth. The world may never affirm it, but the self does, and the self is eternal. To be not meant for this world is to be meant for something greater, something vast, something sacred. And if you have the courage to walk this path, you will discover that your exile is your gift, your suffering is your initiation, and your alienation is your homecoming.